Start. All right. Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in. We're here today, Jessica and myself, to talk to you about analytics and attribution in this day and age of data privacy, app tracking, transparency, all the different challenges that I'm sure all of you in performance marketing are deeply familiar with and have the scar tissue on. I'm Thomas. I'm CEO and co-founder at Tasman Analytics. Tasman Analytics is a data consultancy focused on setting up data stacks very quickly for our clients. And I have with me G, who is CMO at Baird, the #1 couples app on the App Store. We worked with Baird over the last couple of years to set them up with a proper centralized data stack and do a whole lot more, which we'll talk about in a second. But first, a quick word about Tasman, what we do at Tasman, what our sort of main operational model is. We think you deserve better data capabilities in your company. We do that by providing you with a proper data infrastructure that can be fairly minimal, that can be fairly maximal, depending on your needs, but typically revolves around a central data warehouse where you model all of your marketing data sources, event click streams, revenue data into one single source of truth. We don't just stop there. We make sure it connects to business value by setting you up with the insights necessary to back up your business decision-making, your day-to-day marketing decision-making, and so on and so on, removing the need for Excel sheets or any other out-of-platform type of reporting. And then, most importantly, we hand all of this over to your internal teams after a few months. So we very much believe in the necessity for any fast-growing business to have internal data capabilities, and we help you bootstrap and accelerate those. That's what we do. We've now done this for about 60 clients over the last couple of years, and we have no intention of stopping that anytime soon. So that's also why we're here at Anticon, to try and see how we can help you take the next steps in data sophistication. We're going to talk today about something quite relevant, rather than talk in detail about all the different technical setups and so on. So we're just going to talk about 3 pitfalls in modern marketing, what they have to do with data, why they're important, and what you can achieve if you circumvent these pitfalls. So try to make it very tangible, concrete, and tactical. And for that, I've brought with me G. G, over to you.
Thank you so much. First of all, thank you, Thomas, for inviting me, and thank you, Anticon, for having me. I'm really excited to be sharing some tips and some learnings out here today. About myself, I'm Jessica. I've been in marketing for more than 10 years. I studied computer science and I moved to the marketing side, and I've been working in agencies, big companies. And 10 years ago, I fell in love with the app industry. I worked at Blinkist before, and then I joined in 2022 Paired as their CMO. Paired is a #1 app for couples designed to bring you closer together. Hopefully by now you have heard about it. And when I joined in 2022, my goal was to set up the entire marketing infrastructure and the team. So we were in growth at the moment, and we just wanted to set up the foundation that will allow us to grow even more. And that's where we started to go to work together with Tasman as a one team to really face a couple of the pitfalls that I'm going to present today that are going to be pretty interesting. Some of them you probably have encountered in your life, if not maybe every day. We're going to start first with talking about lack of a centralized truth. We know that, as a marketeer, but to be honest, also, right, as you're working in a business, you need one place where you know that the data is correct and you know that you can make the right decisions. Then we're going to talk about my nightmare, privacy limitation in ATT. And finally, declining performance, hard to explain. This is something that happens to us probably on a daily basis, hopefully not. But yeah, we'll tell you more about that. But let's start with the first one. So lack of a centralized truth. You're probably wondering, because we have so many tools, why is Adjust not sufficient? Why is Google Analytics not sufficient? Revenue Cat, Amplitude, and Excel. We, as marketeers, we have a handful of tools that we're using every day. The problem is that the different tools present data in a different way, and they're really focused on different part of the funnel, or just they have a different focus on the data. So Adjust is the place to go if you want to know about attribution, analytics if you have a web infrastructure, and Revenue Cat if you want to know about the revenue, Amplitude for data behavior and product, and then Excel to put everything together. But also Excel is not powerful enough, and what I'm sharing here is what I call my Excel hell, and it's probably how every startup starts, and maybe also bigger organization. So when I joined Paired, we did not have a centralized system system where I could have access to all the data. So what we built is this nightmare of an Excel. This was my Monday morning data retrieval. So what we were doing, like you can see from here, we were retrieving a lot of data from a variety of channels. We were missing that holistic view. So we were trying to put things together, but they had different sources, different variables, different granularity. So that was really complicated and extremely time consuming. Of course, there was a lot of issue also with cross tracking, because at Paired, we're doing acquisitions both on mobile but also on web. That created a lot of issues. And of course, because everything was manual, it was so easy to make mistake. And bear in mind, it would take us like maybe around 2 to 3 hours to like put all of this together. So we would only do it once per week on a Monday. And then we were waiting until the next Monday. So for the time being, we were going blind. And of course, we were looking at the campaigns at the single channels, but that was not enough. And yeah, this is the first challenge that we tried to overcome. And Thomas can tell you more about what we did.
Oh yeah, no, I remember those sort of Monday morning reports viscerally as well in my previous life as running analytics within mobile subscription apps. We knew G, we knew the team, we knew the founders at Paired. We worked with them in previous companies. We knew Blinkist, where Gessica worked previously. So we got in touch with Paired got in touch with us to help us, to ask us to help to centralize some of this and get them to a better place. And I think for their experience of actually making this work for marketing teams rather than building the best technical infrastructure, so to speak, we knew there were sort of 3 objectives to get right here in the data centralization piece. First of all, to give the ability to G and the team to prototype very fast. Right? And what that means is you don't want to work on a weekly cadence in your marketing reporting. You want to be able to spot trends very quickly, act upon them, boost the campaigns that are clearly successful, kill the campaigns that are not successful in any way whatsoever, boost the creative that's successful, really surf on those waves. And if you're severely hindered by reporting bottlenecks there, that's not a good thing. Secondly is we need to make sure that data was centralized in the data warehouse. We'll talk about in a second a bit more detail what that means and how you do that. One single source of truth covering all of the channels, having a single source of truth for how you look at attribution of your convergence. Paired is a mobile subscription app, converting users, and then of course retaining those users is really critical. And the third component is Paired is quite a complex setup with I think 3 main flows in acquisition. There's web to app, where you acquire users on web and send them to the app. There's app to app, where it goes for the app stores. And there is app to web, where people might install the app but then sign up via the website. Being able to combine these different user journeys, really understand them, requires you to have data not just from these different devices, but also from the different channels, have a single source of truth, combine them, build your attribution acquisition view on top of that. And for that, you really need your centralized data view and your centralized data models. So what does a centralized data view look like? Well, for Paired, this is a slightly complex summary of what we ended up building. Just a slightly simplified version, just to make the points quite clear here. Most of you will have seen centralized data stacks in the past, and you know that is getting in your disparate data sources into one data warehouse and then accessing it as a single source of truth downstream. There's a few end-to-end tools out there, at Verity, Funnel, and so on, that also do a whole bunch of this. But the big step that you need in order to make this into a success that actually drives your business forwards and scales with the business is this middle step around data modeling. So not just ingesting your data with tools that are now commoditized like Fivetran or Airbyte or any other extraction tool. Event clickstreams, where we also get our Adjust ASCII ad network data from, for instance. We use Snowplow at Paired. Also, a few of them available that you can sort of look at this point. ReviewCat for subscription data. The complication of a data stack setup is not in the sources. The sources are well understood, easy to set up, easy to ingest into Snowflake, for instance, or BigQuery. The complication is in modeling the data. We use dbt for that. Industry standard in bringing engineering rigor, version control, good testing to ensure accurate reporting down the line and all of that. Building your understanding of the business and then exposing a few different data sets, all built on the same source of truth and business logic to all of your different data consumers over here. That's the important part. That means you serve your dashboards with the same data as your self-serve analytics, with the same data as your Python notebooks, or your reverse ETL and data activation that sends data back into, say, your marketing tools, as we did with Braze at Paired. This is critical. It allows you to have centralized self-service reporting. Hand back to G for showing us what that looks like.
And of course, that meant that we finally got rid of that Excel hell. I actually was really hard to find me yesterday to retrieve from this slide, and I'm glad for that. So we built together a huge set of dashboards, some of them more specific, some of them on like a higher level. That meant we were able to spend more time analyzing the data rather than retrieving the data. Also, the data was reliable and fast. So on Monday morning at 9, it was already there. We could make fast decision. And in general, it allowed us to have a self-serve platform that allow us to explore and go even deeper into the data. And that for us was like, the most valuable thing ever. So yeah, pitfall 1 done. Let's go to the number 2, promise limitation ATT. This is probably my personal nightmare. Why? Because I actually left for maternity leave just before ATT came to life. That was April 2021. So I left, and before that, everyone was talking about it. What are we gonna do? What is gonna happen? There were a lot of articles out there on like how we were be able to, how marketing was gonna change. And I just left, and I thought like, okay, let's see what we'll find when I come back. And what happened, we've seen it all. There was like a huge impact in the industry, in the mobile industry. So in the chart on the next slide, you can see the mobile gaming consumer spend. You can see that it suddenly started to go down. Mobile is probably one of the most famous, I'd say, industry on the famous app industry, and the one that is generating the higher amount of revenue. But what was the problem? The problem is that suddenly we had limited access to user data, like the IDFA, for example. That meant that the marketing platforms were not able to target in the best way. We all remember the good times where we were spending on lookalikes on Meta. That time was over. Suddenly the targeting was like not working, and we were reaching less valuable users. Also, measuring the actual campaign performance was a lot harder. So I still remember when I came back and ATT was like, now a thing. And I remember asking like, okay, well, what is the performance of this ad? And he's like, oh, you don't know. I was like, what? Sorry. Yeah, but what else like the immediate, I don't know, trials that you got from this campaign? Oh, you have to wait 24 hours to send it back. But what do you mean? And it was like a completely new word, and it just made it really hard, especially for companies relying a lot on paid acquisition. But not just paid, even organic, because suddenly you didn't have access to the keywords that were performing the best on the App Store. So it was really hard to do App Store optimization unless you were spending on sample search ads. And if you add the complexity that Thomas was explaining before, so like the fact that you can acquire people from web, send them to the app, or like directly create an account on web, tracking across platform became a complete nightmare. And as a marketeer, we found it really hard to understand the life cycle of the users and all the touchpoints that actually led someone maybe to purchasing a subscription.
Sailing blind, not good. Luckily, a bunch of things have improved, I think, over the last 2 years as the sophistication of algorithms is growing, but still the sort of main problem remains. You do not have this type of granular insights anymore that we used to have pre-ATT. It's a good thing for data privacy. I think actually it also challenges us, and I think that's a good thing as well. Luckily, we found a way to make marketing and analytics work quite well in this new world as well. Remember that you do not need user-level data in order to make good marketing decisions. You need aggregate data per cohort on a very fine granularity, of course, but still, it's a very different world from looking at the unit and user-level data itself. So what do we do? What do we make sure? How do we make sure that marketing teams can still spend with confidence, understand their channel mix, understand what's going on? Two big things here. So first of all, understanding the opt-in to app tracking per channel. Why is that important? App tracking is not a blanket thing. It actually is a system that goes from an opt-out model to an opt-in model. And the opt-in to tracking is something that changes really drastically from app to app, from country to country, even from campaign to campaign. It can be as low as 10%, it can be as high as 80%. We've seen both. Making sure you understand what those percentages are on the sort of fine granularity of channel, campaign, country, week platform. And then using this data that you get from your ASCII ad network data you get for Adjust in this case, to extrapolate using the actual attributed revenue, extrapolate that back because you know the opt-in percentages to the full, what the full channel mix would look like there. That's what we would do as a sort of first pass, kind of trying to understand that by channel and then going from there. Downside here is that you have a lot of week-by-week fluctuations where your sort of error rate will be relatively high. So you need a bit more data in order to make confident decisions on the back of this. But it gives you a really solid start. that you need a data platform for, by the way. You can't really do this in Adjust itself. You can't without resorting to Excel sheets. You need to do it in a proper centralized data model. The second approach is to take all of the unattributed revenue and make sure that you, using the uplift percentages, using uplift modeling and using the opt-in rates that you have, you re-attribute it back into the channels in a nice sort of zero-sum, kind of make sure your sums check out kind of way. So that's the redistributing organic revenue into your paid channels based on looking at the percentage of installs attributed in your SKE ad data that you get from Adjust. So those are the two things we did. And the results, G?
The results is that it was not a nightmare anymore. So first of all, there was no double counting of revenue per campaign because this is the risk of that. We had better allocation of revenue and installs to campaigns and channels instead of being distributed on organic and attributed that would not allow us to optimize. And of course, this led to better optimization already at day zero and just making best business decision because especially when it comes to marketing media mix, we were able to really understand what was the real impact of the different channels. And again, in an emerging business, it is in a hyper growth phase. That's super important.
Yeah.
So again, done. Pitfall number 2 done. Okay, and let's talk about the number 3. This is probably something that everyone has experienced at some point. If not, please come because I wanna know you. But it's a declining revenue that you cannot explain. So we also had a time like that appeared after like an initial phase of hyper growth. We encounter a couple of issues. The revenue was declining, but also the performance of our campaigns were declining. And I guess because we are relying on marketing, that being organic or paid, we depend on algorithm, we depend on CPMs on the channels. We saw the decreasing trends and we started to ask ourselves questions. What are the main drivers of the success of these channels? Also, are the new channels that we're launching really working? And how do we balance the trackable performance with what we cannot see for channels like influencer, connected TV, and radio? And that's how we approach this.
Cool, yeah, and it's never a good thing, right? If you get a bunch of declining revenue on ROAS and are unable to explain it, and I think that happened in the summer of 2023. We'd already offboarded because we built the entire data platform, handed it over to the internal team, but we came in over the summer of 2023 to run some very quick, rapid analysis to try and understand not just what was happening, because that was clear, but why things were happening and what actions could be taken. And I think that's where combination of analytical approaches, uplift modeling, media mix modeling, performance driver analysis really comes into play. So only able to do that, of course, because of the platform and because of the actionable and accurate attribution data we had. But we did 4 things that resulted in 4 different sort of recommendations we could make. First of all, content performance. We had a hypothesis that, because Paired is a very content-driven acquisition play, we knew that looking at content was the first good step. We ran a bunch of DK analysis on the detailed Facebook and attribution data that we saw. We saw that lifespan and freshness were key drivers for performance. So the longer an ad was around, the lower the performance would be. And therefore, of course, the actual recommendation would be to change the content engine, kind of make sure that iterates more quickly. Secondly, going into the funnel itself, trying to understand, well, where is this lack of efficiency? Where is this decline in efficiency that we clearly see in ROAS? Where is that happening? Turned out that the funnel itself was quite consistent over time. So led us to think that the top of funnel was the main thing to fix here. Third one is recently launched channels really got into big impact. That turned out to be quite a nice application of media mix modeling and some Bayesian regression as well to try and separate the TikTok signal from the rest. Turns out TikTok was a main driver of incremental revenue growth, not a base revenue growth, but incremental revenue growth. And the fourth one is there were other new channels, mainly around influencers, that drove organic uplift. We could really see that in the numbers itself. So turning out a nice baseline and a nice little almost linear formula between amount of extra spent on influencers and revenue uplift, and making sure that that got tested quite rigorously was quite nice there. Results, this is what the analysis would look like. Whole bunch of Notion documents, all very easy to do this in a space of a few weeks because of the data platform. And then the results here are that we were able to make actionable recommendations to G and team that allowed them to scale revenue and increase ROAS quite dramatically over the few months after that. So hey, that's where data platform really earns itself back quite quickly. All right, last 30 seconds. What did we learn here today? So first of all, the sort of three challenges: the lack of a centralized truth, privacy limitations, and app tracking transparency, declining performance that you're looking at typically at one point in your life cycle. Very typical problems. If you haven't suffered all three of them, you will in the future for sure. A good data strategy, a good data platform goes some way to solve them. So what we would recommend to take home with you as clear pieces of advice: first of all, get your data platform in place sooner than you think. It is critical to enable you to solve the other problems you're going to face, and it gives you the visibility that you need. I think G told me that they're using these dashboards to help them build on an hour-by-hour basis in order to kind of get to the bottom of what's happening. Secondly, uplift modeling and SCAT techniques. That's your ticket through the current version of ATT. Understanding that this is about aggregates and cohort level insight rather than user level or unit level insight is the sort of key insight here. And three is actionable analysis. That's for any data person here, any data adjacent person, make sure you prioritize actionable analysis wherever you are in the journey of a data team. No one really cares about the technical sophistication of a data platform if it doesn't lead to actionable, rapid analysis. So please prioritize that, why things are happening, not just what is happening. And with that in mind, thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you so much, G, for joining me here to talk through what we did for Baird. We will be at Anticon. We're available at Tasman.ai. Hello at Tasman.ai. Reach out to us if you just want to spitball a few ideas around data, or if you need some friendly advice from us. We're always happy to give that. And otherwise, I wish you a fantastic day, and thank you so much for watching us. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.